Alright, wrestling viewers, good morning. It is Friday, August 13, 2021. If you so happen to stumble upon this video, welcome. This is the Five Starr Wrestling Report, and today we are going to be doing the recap of the August 10th episode of NXT and the August 11th episode of Dynamite from AEW. Before I actually dive into the shows, let me get some logistical plugs out of the way first. This is a relatively new channel, as you can probably tell from the minimal subscriber and viewer count. That's alright though, because we're building this baby from scratch, or at least that's the hypothetical plan. I would appreciate all the support that I can get from any and all that happen to enjoy the content that I put out here in the future. Right now, I am trying to scope out a reasonable plan as to how I could grow this channel by uploading more consistently and, still trying to keep a balance of a full-time job and other personal life matters. I think my game plan for right now is to run with the 2 weekly uploads. I'll have a Friday recap edition where I cover NXT and Dynamite, which is the show that you're watching right now. And then I am planning to do a Monday edition where I cover AEW Rampage from the preceding Friday, Sunday pay-per-view recaps, if there are any to talk about, and maybe I'll try to squeeze in something else in there. I'm not exactly sure yet. And, this is where I could kind of throw the ball in viewers' court. Let me know if there's anything interesting that would deem worthwhile discussing. I do have a Peacock subscription, so if there's additional WWE content that would be fun to discuss, I could do that. If it's of any interest, I could try to get back into watching some NWA content. It was something that I covered when I started this channel a couple years ago and couldn't follow through with it, so maybe revisit that show. There's some territorial stuff I could talk about. There's all kinds of stuff, but let me know if you have any input on the matter. Other thing too is to make sure that you have not done so already. Make sure you subscribe, leave a comment in the section below to help me out with the algorithms. Make sure that you give this video a like, do me a solid with the rating there. And as you will see in my link in the bio, as well as the main channel banner, I will be uploading this content to my Rumble page as well. It's just going to be a duplicate upload content, so if you don't want to watch it here on YouTube and you want to watch it on the Rumble platform, you can jump over there and check it out there as well. So just want to throw that little plug in there too. With all that out of the way, let's get into the content. NXT from August 10th, 2021. Dakota Kai versus the undefeated Sarai. That is the former undefeated Sarai. Yep, didn't take too long to make her just another person on the roster. Apparently Ember Moon was scheduled to wrestle, but she couldn't get cleared by the medical team. Haven't really read much into that, so I don't know if they were just BSing us here or if she's actually hurt. I would bet the former. So they ended up replacing her with Dakota, and this wasn't bad. It was just boring. Like, Dakota's a good wrestler, so I'm not really sure what happened here. Just didn't seem like they had a lot of chemistry together. Just something did not click. Also didn't help that it probably went like 5 minutes longer than it really needed to. They just had every modern professional wrestling match you've seen in the last 10 or so years. Sometime during the match, they cut to a split screen where Raquel conveniently arrived at the building during a match involving her opponent for the title at TakeOver. Dakota won with an axe kick after Saray missed a running drop kick into the ropes. She teased a post-match assault, only to get run off by Raquel. And then we got a fairly awkward moment where Raquel tried to cut a babyface promo, but the crowd pretty much booed her out of the building. So that was a big miss on their end. It also just kind of demonstrates why, if you're going to do the monster versus scrappy underdog talent, you really have to have the right dynamic and characters to have the giant play the babyface role. Most of the time it doesn't work, and unfortunately, I don't think Raquel's the kind of talent that you can put in that babyface role right now. We had the first of many goofy comedy skits involving the Garganos, Indy Hartwell, and Dexter Loomis. Indy was preparing for a date with Dexter. This was... well, it was cringy, that's for sure. And by the way, for the record, people, yes, we are indeed supposed to forget that Gargano beat Dexter last week in a match where if Gargano won, Indy was supposed to walk away from Dexter altogether. So you go figure that one out. We had Hit Row doing a skit where they threw one of Legado del Fantasma's masks into a burning barrel. Ilya Dragunov came out for a promo. Pretty standard white meat babyface promo. Basically vows to beat Walter, take over, and win the UK title. This brought out Pete Dunne, looking like a goddamn toe. And he basically said that had it not been for him putting NXT UK on the map, Dragunov wouldn't have gotten the opportunities he's gotten. He wouldn't be where he is now, and something of the sort. It's a Pete Dunne promo, so it wasn't all that good. And Ilya ended up challenging Dunne to a match in the main event. So in the new and improved NXT, wherein WWE no longer wants people over the age of 30 competing on the brand and being pushed, the 38-year-old LA Knight defeated the former Harlem Bravado that just got eliminated from the NXT Breakout Tournament. Yeah, the Breakout Tournament, that thing that was designed to showcase the supposed younger talent that WWE wants to revolve NXT around going forward. Yeah, well, that young guy just got jobbed out in less than a minute, so great start there, guys. Not that I'm complaining about them pushing LA Knight. I mean, Christ, if we're talking about a guy you could believably build your brand around as a top heel, LA Knight is not a bad guy to go with. So then we got what I can merely best describe as a live television moment where Ted DiBiase comes down and attempted to cut a promo. Is that too harsh? I don't know what the hell happened here, but for whatever reason, this dude could not remember a single line for the life of him. Honestly, it was like watching a Joe Biden press conference for a minute there. And, of course, Knight's trying to feed him along, and eventually he's just like, Ted, if you have a point you're trying to make, you might as well make it, because you're just kind of standing there like a Nimrod trying to remember what you're supposed to say, and this is really not compelling television. He didn't actually say that, but wouldn't be surprised if he was thinking it. So, Stoic Ted tells Knight to shut his mouth, and this eventually leads to him telling Grimes to grow a set and stand up for himself. And, it's funny, because first LA Knight's like, no, I already beat this guy twice. I don't need to do it a third time. And after Ted takes like 5 minutes to get the point of telling Grimes that he can beat Knight for the $1 million title, Knight just goes, all right, I'll do it. So then Knight proposes that if he beats Grimes at TakeOver, then Ted DiBiase will become Knight's butler instead of Grimes. And because Mr. DiBiase's a betting man, he agrees to the terms. Yeah, this was no good. Gigi Dolan versus Amari Miller. I think that's how you pronounce her name. just a regular nothing happening squash. They did stuff for a few minutes, and Gigi won with a move. Not all that impressed with Gigi, if I'm being honest. And no, that's not just because she's another one of these oddball chicks with the abnormal hair color or the face piercings or anything like that. I just don't see her going anywhere in WWE. And yes, for anyone wondering, I am aware of the fact that this is the same girl that jammed tampons into people's mouths on the indie circuit. No, I'm not going to comment any further on it. Okay, I'm just curious here. WWE has Applebee's as one of their sponsors, correct? Can someone explain to me how you missed the golden opportunity to have Indy and Dexter's date take place at an Applebee's? Is it because Jamie Noble and Nydia did it almost 20 years ago? Or maybe Applebee's isn't classy enough? What, too comical, perhaps, for this oh-so-serious Index storyline? Right. Or fuck it, for that matter, I'd have done some skits with these two at a Sonic drive-thru. At least you could have done some halfway decent comedy with Gargano and Candice spying on Indy and Dexter from another drive-in station. But apparently my creativity is far too fetched for these numbskull writers. We got an Adam Cole-Kyle O'Reilly face-off. Somehow within the span of the last week, William Regal decided that the Cole-O'Reilly rubber match is going to be contested as a 2 out of 3 falls, with each guy getting to choose a stipulation. So the stips are: Fall 1 is a singles match, which Kyle chose. Fall 2 is a street fight, which Adam chose. And Fall 3, should it come to that, as if, is going to be a steel cage, this one being Regal's decision. So, yeah, it's literally just a carbon copy of Adam Cole versus Johnny Gargano from NXT Toronto 2 years ago. And while I know my memory is not the sharpest these days, I do seem to recall being, let's just say, underwhelmed by that match. Particularly coming off the heels of the previous 2 Cole Gargano matches, which were like the 2 best matches in NXT that year. So hopefully this one's a step up from that. Although if I'm being honest, I really have not been that impressed with the Adam Cole-Kyle O'Reilly matches in NXT anyway, so maybe this one will impress me, who knows. I did think it was kind of weird that they didn't build this third match as a loser leaves NXT, which, well, considering Adam Cole's contract status, I figured it would make all the sense in the world for them to do that stip. Maybe give Cole a grand send-off or something, but I don't know. Who knows? I mean, they could book an angle next week where Cole and O'Reilly get into another brawl and, Regal jumps in and says, all right, loser leaves NXT. Guess we shall see. We had Ciampa and Thatcher calling out Ridge Holland in the back somewhere. And if you've seen most Ciampa Thatcher skits lately, this is pretty much a cut and paste version here. They're sitting in chairs. Ciampa snarls and sounds intense. Thatcher grits his teeth and looks menacingly into the camera.
He's just standing there, menacingly.
Ciampa flips a chair behind him, which someday I'm petrified that he's going to accidentally hit Thatcher in the face with it. And then Ciampa walks off camera, and Thatcher smiles and shows his chipped, fucked up tooth, which he really should get fixed. Odyssey Jones versus Trey Baxter in the NXT Breakout Tournament semifinals. Pretty short squash. Odyssey won in pretty convincing fashion. And then afterwards, he cut one of those generic I made it feel good promos, and it was fine. I can make a snarky joke about it, but I'll leave it alone. I did find it a little comical that Odyssey was stoked about earning a slot in the finals. For me only to sit there and realize like a minute later, Oh, yeah, that's right. He's still got one more match. So why are we celebrating like he just won the damn lottery? We get the announcement of a double main event next week with Kushida and Roderick Strong wrestling for the Cruiserweight title and MSK versus Imperium for the tag titles. Kind of wish they had to save Kushida and Strong for TakeOver, but it is what it is. Boa versus Drake Maverick. This match had to be a total rib. I mean, like, it's one thing to put Boa in a squash match on TV. It is another thing entirely to put him in a match against a guy he towers over by at least a full foot. Anyway, they wrestled for a few minutes, and Maverick rolls to the outside. Mei Ying proceeds to spit mist into his eyes, directly in front of the referee, by the way, which was not a DQ. And then Boa gave Maverick a kick in the head for the pin. They had what was actually a pretty good hype promo for Karrion Kross versus Samoa Joe. Still not all that enthused by the match, but the promo package was well done. I think, oh man, what did I tell my coworker? We were talking about this match briefly, and I mentioned something about why I wasn't really feeling this program. You know, I brought up the whole Raw deal, and him jobbing to Jeff Hardy in 2 minutes or whatever, but can't remember the other thing I brought up. It doesn't matter. But yeah, like I said, good video package. I really wish I was more enthused by this program than I am right now. I mean, I like Cross, I like Joe. Really should feel like I should be more excited about this than I am, but I think I said last week, there's just something off about this program. And I don't know what it is. Pete Dunne versus Ilya Dragunov in the main event. Let me get my quick gripe out of the way, and I'll share my thoughts on the match. The next time that I hear the words joint and or manipulation in a Pete Dunne match ever again, it'll be too soon. Like, seriously, it's almost as cringeworthy as hearing the announcers having to explain to the viewing audience when wrestlers are taken to the local medical facility. You can't just say hospital. Now, all that said, match was very good. Pete can't cut a promo worth shit, but his wrestling's usually good. And I've only seen a handful of Ilya Dragunov matches, but I mean, pretty much every time I've seen him wrestle, he's been outstanding. So they had a very good TV main event, and in a completely baffling decision that I'm still shaking my head at, they tease a distraction finish with Walter and Ilya facing off. Pete and Ilya do some brief counter exchanges, and then Pete Dunne just hits Ilya with a bitter end and pins him clean, essentially. And if I honestly cared more, I'd have probably smashed my head into my computer monitor. When I saw this finish, I didn't even flinch. I just like, well, that was fucking stupid. And to make matters even worse, after Ilya does a clean job to Pete for seemingly no reason, Walter gets into the ring, Ilya knocks him on his ass, and then poses with the UK title, completely no-selling the loss. And meanwhile, Walter's laying outside the ring like he just tripped over a curb or something like that. So, yeah, that was their big selling point for Walter versus Dragunov 2. Hope the match is better. That's all I can say about it. And overall, I would say NXT was just a show. As most people have probably heard about this now, NXT is going to be undergoing some drastic changes in the coming weeks, and yeah, you can definitely start to see them infiltrate some of those ideas on the shows here. You know, a lot more focus on character build, comedy skits, short squash matches. And I can already tell a lot of this stuff just won't be for me, but with the direction and trajectory this show's been on since they went live on USA 2 years ago, I don't know, man. Maybe a format change is not necessarily off the cards. I mean, honestly, it might be what the show desperately needs right now. All right. AEW Dynamite, August 11th, 2021. We begin with MJF and Wardlow doing a skit. MJF was chomping on an apple, cutting a promo on Chris Jericho to hype up the fourth labor match for tonight with Wardlow. And, basically the whole premise was the idea that Wardlow was going to finish Jericho for good. MJF threw in a snide comment about Wardlow losing to Cody in the cage last year. And then Wardlow smashed MJF's apple into scraps. So obviously doing some tension split there. And whereas WWE is trying but completely missing the boat with the Diesel Shawn Michaels story with Raquel and Dakota, this is actually a case here where you can get a lot of sympathy on Wardlow as a babyface going up against the smaller, loudmouth pissant in MJF. The Elite versus Dante Martin and the Seidel brothers. God damn, that Elite music is atrocious. Anyway, they had, for a while it was pretty standard AEW multi-man matches. Lots of choreographed-looking gymnastics in this six-man. Young Bucks are in there doing, what the Young Bucks do, acting like jackasses. So they're doing stuff for a while, and somewhere within the last few minutes, Dante Martin gets a hot tag and goes into a flurry of impressive-looking offense. He's a hell of an athlete, I'll give him that. Dude can fucking move. I think he's got potential. The good thing is that he's young enough where he's got plenty of time to hone his craft. Yeah, I just hope he doesn't fall into the obligatory trap of relying solely on his moveset to get him over. And, he actually takes time to work on Mike's skills, develop his persona. But, yeah, I think he's got something. So eventually they built to the big finish where Dante and Omega exchanged some offense. Omega ended up giving him a V-trigger and a one-winged angel for the win. Match was nothing to write home about or anything, but, they tried to make it a showcase for Dante here, so that was at least good. So after the bell, the Elite and Don Callis are in the ring doing a promo. Christian Cage and the Jurassic Express interrupt. And, to make a rather convoluted, long story short here, they're going to do Christian Cage versus Kenny Omega for the AEW World title at All Out on the 5th. But they're also going to do Christian versus Kenny in the opening match this Friday on Rampage for the Impact World title. All right then. So, suffice it to say, I actually had to go back and rewatch this because when I first watched it, I had thought that Omega and Cage were wrestling on Rampage for the AEW belt. No, turns out I was wrong. Apparently it's for the Impact World title, which is comical in and of itself. So, what, your premiere match on your premiere secondary show is going to be a match featuring two guys wrestling for a belt that your company doesn't own? Like, how does that make sense? I guess if you're Impact, you might consider it good publicity, but, then you realize it's fucking Impact and no one's watching it to begin with. So I really wasn't a big fan of that. I get the idea is to have Christian beat Kenny for the Impact title. That way you keep Christian undefeated. He's the first guy to beat Kenny on AEW TV in over a year. You get to All Out. You've already kind of painted the idea that Christian beat Kenny once so he could do it again. So I get it. But, couldn't you just do the same idea here by having Christian beat Kenny in, a 6-man tag with the Bucks and Jurassic Express or something? Why do you need to overcomplicate things by throwing the Impact title in there? I just don't get it. I will say that if their rationale here is to make Christian a regular on Impact programming, then that's great. But again, I don't see why AEW needs to use their first match on their second premiere show to put over Impact. Because that's essentially what this whole thing feels like. Yeah, there's story implementation in there, but it's like the whole thing feels designed to basically garner some publicity for Impact Wrestling. And like, again, I don't really have a problem with it. Is that really what we need to be doing right now? We had a Malachi Black inset, wherein the only thing I could think the entire time watching it was, how in the fuck did WWE miss the boat on this guy so bad? And, well, about 5 seconds later, I realized, well, it's WWE. They missed the boat on a lot of things. So, not surprising. Daniel Garcia versus Darby Allin. This was good. Really good, in fact. I didn't have much of an expectation going in, but they wrestled a straightforward, old school match. I've never seen a Daniel Garcia match before. Well, actually, no, that's a lie. Didn't he wrestle? Yeah, he wrestled last week in that 6-man tag. I mean, he didn't really do a whole lot, though. This is more of a showcase piece for him. I liked what I saw. I mean, he's intense, he's crisp. Everything he did in this match had purpose and grit. Yeah, man, good shit. Probably my favorite segment of the show, if I'm being frank. I can tell you what was not my favorite segment of the night. It was this 6-man tag match with Orange Cassidy, Chuck Taylor, and Wheeler Yuta versus Private Party and Matt Hardy, aka the team of Party Hardy. Although I will give one credit where it's due. Took him almost 2 years to figure it out, but someone finally had the gall to tell Chuck Taylor to wear some overalls when he wrestles. So they wrestled a match, did some stupid comedy. This is like the quintessential AEW deal where they got like way too many people they're trying to get over on TV at a given time, so they have to do like 50 different things during a match, which takes the focus off the match. They could probably do something constructive with Yuta. Of course, in order for that to happen, he's probably got to ditch the Goon Squad. And, unfortunately, that doesn't seem like something that's in the works anytime soon. Overall, just too much shit going on here to keep track of. I mean, you had Jack Evans out there causing distractions. You got Blade in the alley ringside. I think Nyla Rose ran down and jumped Chris Statlander at one point. Like, you guys can just let people wrestle, right? Like, you don't need the 15 angles in a single segment. By the way, I forgot to mention this, but they did have a skit where Death Triangle essentially laid out a challenge to Andrade, and Pac was there too, so I made sure I tuned in to watch. Love me some Pac. Another guy that if I were running a wrestling company, that guy is someone I'm billing as a top heel for sure. Nyla Rose versus Chris Statlander. Don't really have anything constructive to say about it, so I'm just going to skip over it. We had a hideously unfunny skit with the Young Bucks and Jurassic Express backstage. I like Jungle Boy and Luchasaurus, but Matt and Nick have such go-away heat with me. Like, I don't even think God himself could save anything involving these clowns. We had Britt Baker come out for her obligatory Pittsburgh babyface promo, despite them doing everything in their power to keep her heel. Anyway, so Britt's out there cutting a great promo, basically assuring that she's going to beat Red Velvet for the title on Rampage, which apparently is going to be the main event. And, well, the segment was great up until the point where they had Red come out and jump Britt, at which point they pretty much cut off Britt's legs from under her. Didn't really agree with them doing that. They should have just let Britt do her deal, let her get cheered by everyone and just, move on to the next segment. Like, this is another common thread I see in AEW a lot, and I wish they would work on this. Not every promo segment needs to end with some kind of pull apart or beat down or brawl. Like, just sometimes it's just in your best interest to let people go out there, say their piece, and move on. Like, I mean, it's not exclusive to AEW, because NXT does this all the time, too, where, someone's cutting a fiery, passionate promo, and it's really good, and, then someone has to come out and do a run-in or something like that. It's just like, do you really need to do that? Just something in modern professional wrestling that I wish would go away. Dark Order versus the Baldwin Brothers for the Impact World Tag Titles. Why? Because, well, even in the year 2021, they want us to try and pretend that Impact Wrestling matters. Match was boring. Anderson and Gallows suck. They sucked in WWE. They suck in Impact. They suck in AEW. That's all I have to say about it. Although I will say this. Frankie Kazarian, man. What a hell of a gig this guy's got going on right now. Just showing up every now and then to lay out or chase off an elite dude and disappear like 30 seconds later. Never has to work a match. Doesn't have to take any big bumps. Man, sign me up for that job. We had a skit with QT Marshall and his crew with Tony Schiavone in the ring. Dude, like, I don't mean any disrespect here. There's a lot that Jim Cornette and I agree on when it comes to wrestling, particularly like talent. One guy that I can assure you we will never see eye to eye on is QT Marshall. I have no idea what Cornette sees in this guy, but dude, I can go to the grave having never seen a QT segment on AEW TV ever again and die a happy man. They beat up Tony's son, who was conveniently sitting in the front row ringside, and also did not take a very convincing gut punch. I mean, let's just call it as it is. Anyway, this all led to the Big Show coming out, giving one of the Factory Bros a choke slam and, I guess, teasing a feud with Marshall. Riveting. And in the main event, Chris Jericho versus Wardlow with MJF ringside and not the special guest referee, which is definitely how they should have promoted the match, given all the confusion with how they plugged this on last week's show. The match was, not really good if we're being frank. They did very basic, boring wrestling for a while. Wardlow controlled a lot of the offense. Hit a powerbomb, does a pose. Hit a powerbomb, does a pose. Hit a powerbomb, does a pose. Hit an F5 later on, does another pose. And this went on for what felt like 3 full Earth revolutions. So, like I said, match was not really anything special. The finish was well done, though. So MJF tries to do a run-in, but in a rare professional wrestling moment where the referees are not booked to be blind, deaf, and dumb, Aubrey catches MJF, she throws him out, and with Wardlow distracted, Jericho hits him with the Judas effect and pins him. And after the bell, MJF announces that he will be facing Jericho in the 5th labor match, but the stips are Jericho cannot use the Judas effect, and Jericho will come out to the ring to silence. And no, he was not referencing the song Sound of Silence. Hello, darkness, my old friend. Anyway. And by the way, apparently this Jericho MJF match is scheduled to take place on Dynamite next week. Yeah, not All Out. Dynamite. All right, then. So that was AEW for the week. Kind of a helter-skelter-like show. Good stuff, bad stuff, things I liked, things I didn't like. I will say that as far as like overall viewing experience goes, I definitely enjoyed AEW as a show more. I mean, honestly, I don't even know what to make of NXT right now. Generally, I would say NXT is more inoffensive and boring than anything. Like, AEW does a lot of stupid stuff, but I wouldn't say I'm ever bored watching the show. Well, unless I'm watching a Good Brothers match, and in that case, I feel like I need to pop a shot of 5-hour energy or something. But, yeah, like I said, AEW, not everything's my flavor of tea. I mean, there's believe it or not, there's actually more stuff on this show that I don't like than I do like, and most of the time I just kind of gloss over it for, reasons of not trying to make the whole thing a rant video. But, there's enough good stuff that AEW does where it kind of covers up for a lot of the negative things. And the other thing too that I do appreciate about Dynamite is that there's always something to talk about. Do I necessarily agree with all their booking decisions? No. Do I agree with the way they format the show a lot of the time? I mean, there are things that they need to work on, but I never feel like when I finish watching an AEW show that I think, well, there wasn't really anything eventful to talk about. There wasn't anything noteworthy or, anything like that. That is something that I appreciate about Dynamite. They always present something where it's like when the show's over, you're like, oh, okay, here's a topical discussion or some kind of point to make. So that's good. Anyway, there you have it. That was AEW and NXT. And if anyone has anything further to comment on, things I glossed over on these shows that you want to elaborate on, things that I didn't mention that you think are worth discussing, I want to hear down below. Let me know what show you dug more, the goods, the bads, pros, cons, all that stuff in the comments. And like I mentioned before, make sure you give this video a thumbs up for me, and make sure you subscribe and hit that little bell icon to keep updated on my weekly postings. Again, the plan going forward is to do AEW NXT recaps on Friday, and then the upload will either be that same day or early Saturday morning, depending on how editing goes. And then on Monday, I will do the Rampage review, and if there's a Sunday pay-per-view, I'll make sure I recap there. For this coming Monday, I will probably just be doing the Rampage recap, but, if there's other content out there that you want me to discuss going forward, let me know what sounds interesting, and I'll look into it. If there's another show you want me to tack on, if there's a documentary you want me to watch and review, maybe a topical opinion video, discussion video you want to hear, I'll do whatever. I'm open to pretty much anything at this point. That all said, thank you everyone for watching. I will be back on Monday to recap the first Rampage episode. Hopefully a show with a couple surprises in store.